to be able to have new insights so that we don't get stuck in the old ruts and get stuck in the old roots and get stuck in the things that we were doing the way we were doing them forever and ever and ad infinitum. Not amen, because that is not as it is. That is not what it is that God does. God is forever creating newness. God is forever creating freshness. God is forever creating unique ways to reveal itself. That is why we are all here. God couldn't do it all when it made Claudette. God got a lot of things good there, but God needed to do it in a different way when he created Candace. God needed to do it in a different way when she created Nikki. God needed to do it in a different way when she said, I'm feeling some Tala right now. That God did it in a different way when each one of us were thought into being. God was like really loving on itself, and it was like, that first song, dang, I feel good. When God went into the awareness of, whoa, Asha sounds like a really good idea for me to express right now. So in this way, we're able to continue to know that each moment has some unique and fantastic expression of God that is happening. And I'm so grateful when musicians like Ed are in alignment with the presence of love. This is what happens when we are in sync with the substance of everything that is. Because even though there is dirt on the ground, every piece of dirt isn't the same. And so even though the substance of what is there appears all to be dirt that kind of looks like other dirt, there's something that is within every speck of dirt that is able to be the ground from which beautiful roses and beautiful trees and beautiful magnolias and all sorts of things can be earthed. And that just means from that Adama, that substance of God that is like this fertile ground for things to be created and for them to come into fruition from a ground of being. And that ground of being is what we call consciousness. He wasn't my quantum physics instructor, even though that was the essence of what I was getting in science and spirituality and in my other class that I took with him that had to do with the eternality of life. But the phrase that he would continue to say is consciousness is the ground of all being. And that's key for us to understand when we're having a conversation about life. Because life isn't simply limited to our perception of it. Life isn't limited to any one of our ideas about what it is. And so thank God for that. Because it would be so limited. It would be probably the kind of lives that some of us are living because we think that that's the way it is. But this month's theme is abundant living. And the first week we discussed a new birth, and we were being invited into, a kind of trust that a caterpillar has. The caterpillar trusts its maker that all is well. And we were being invited to release clinging to the old way of being so that we could be transformed, so that we would have the capacity to fly. And so we realized in that conversation that clinging to our old stage, clinging to our old ways of judgment was not the ground of being for us to be able to fly from. So we have to get a better idea, a bigger idea, a God idea, and not simply leaning into our own understanding because we're only standing under what we've already experienced. But when we realize that we're standing on substance, then that is the ground of being from which we can truly fly. So in the second week of October, we explored the matter of the mass as we were with the Higgs boson, the scientists who had discovered this God principle through billions and billions of dollars spent on this massive machine smashing things together so that they could prove that there was a God principle, as if we needed that. But for those who did, that was necessary. And so we are also looking in that same conversation at Malala, this Pakistani young teenager who was willing to stand in her power, in her divine power, that was absolutely knowing that she was stepping into her greatness, regardless of the Taliban's insistence on trying to subdue and oppress any woman from having education. This young teenager was willing to stand in the face of the Taliban, which the whole rest of the world has been quivering with, thinking, oh my God, the Taliban is going to get us. And this young girl said, that which is in me is greater than anything you're talking about. And even though she took a bullet in the head, she's still continuing to do the work because she knows it's the presence of God within her that's doing the work. She knows that it is that mass that is in her beingness that is really the activity that's going on. And so then last week, we stepped into the idea that God loves you more than you know. And so more than you know was a way for us to kind of get to the idea that our belief is measuring the extent and degree of our blessings. It just is done unto you as you believe. There's just no way around it. Whether you take it from the Bible, whether you don't want to take it from the Bible, that truth principle just simply is. As a man thinketh, so is he. Whatever quote works for you if you need that. Just know that everything you want is relying on your belief. Breathe. Wow, that's a lot of pressure. So I gotta believe more in order for me to have what I want. Yeah, that's all you have to do though. It ain't like you gotta go dig ditches or you gotta like climb up mountains and reach the highest leaf on the tree at the top of the mountain. All you gotta do is believe. That's it. That's all it comes down to. Well, I don't know how to do that. Wow. The thing is, we've been talking about it all month, and we've been talking about abundant living. Abundant living doesn't just simply mean you're driving a Rolls Royce, or you just flashing cash all over the place, or you got bling bling going on everywhere. It's not about abundant living. It's not about how many things that you can acquire at the end of the day. You know, people like Candace's mother knows that. It's about how many people can you touch. As the teacher that she was, it's about how many people can you light. And because the light in you is like me lighting these candles this morning. It's like in order for that light to shine, we have got to ignite that in one another. But we have to start with ourselves. See, that's the thing. The beautiful thing is that we had the Oneness Day celebration on Thursday. We built up to it last week. We're going to do a little bit more piece to that this afternoon. Early this afternoon, meaning just afternoon. But we're going to be moving into that because it's necessary for us to continue to know why we are here. You know, the Oneness Spiritual Center isn't simply a name. It's not simply an idea. And so when I was just being in that as much as I could be and just really looking forward to just listening to the links over and over and over again, but when I was able to really get engaged in was when Ken Wilber and those people were talking about integral spirituality. And when you get into the idea that, you know, one religion isn't better than another, then you can kind of be open to the expansive way that God is happening as and through each one of us, in and through all of our ideas, whether they are even beneficial or not. The thing is, you know, the conversation was about, you know, there's an egocentric level where, you know, that means you're just focused on me. Oh, it's all about me. It's all about me. You know, it's all about me. And then there's another kind of centric that's about ethnocentric. Well, you know, it's about my people. You You know, even if you take it to a race thing, or even if you take it to a sexuality thing, or even if you take it to a nation thing, we're Americans. You know, it's about us. You know, even if you take it to, it's about human thing. You know, there's other things that are really making beautiful contributions to our lives. Things like roses, things like, you know, the stuff that keeps you going, like the beans that you eat from the ground and the salads and those things. They're not human, but guess what? Try to live without all of those things and see what happens. And so when you have an idea that it's not simply about an ethnocentric idea, when you have the truth that it's not simply about what your group is and what your group looks like and what your group brings to the table, it gives you an opportunity to come into a world-centric frame of mind too. Because when you realize that people like Malala can give hope to people, even in Washington, D.C., who have been trembling in their boots around the Taliban, where she was able to absolutely stand in the truth of her being. You see, she doesn't live anywhere within the contiguous United States or any other United States territories. She's not a part of that, but she's very much a part of our conscience because she has been influencing and affecting the ground of our being in excellence. And so if you think about anyone else that may be in another continent or on another planet even, and I know we don't know so much about the beings that are out there, but we know there's a lot of energy out there because we send enough ships and satellites out there to be really kind of picking up on a lot of activity that's happening. And I don't propose to be able to explain it all, but I know that there's something more than what's here. And so when we're able to have like a more cosmocentric awareness, then that means we get to include all of it. So we get to include not only the egocentrics and the ethnocentrics and the world-centrics, we get to include everything. We get to include the homophobes, and we get to include the racists that are not defined or limited to any one race. We get to include the people who are religious fanatics, and we get to include the people who are atheists. We get to include everybody who's agnostic and everybody that doesn't like organized religion and those who absolutely rely on it for their weekly sustenance, not to be confused with their substance. But understand that this journey into a cosmocentric awareness is really what this oneness spiritual center is about. When we say that our commitment is to a world that works for everyone, that's not even limited to human beings. Because if you keep messing around by trying to drill in the last biodiverse rainforest in the Amazon, then see what's going to happen. And that's what they're threatening to do. And somebody invited me to sign a petition against that, and I did. Because God doesn't need us to be its consultants. When God created a multi-diverse rainforest that has a balance, everything that needs to support the other thing. You know how the plants are emitting the oxygen. You know how we're emitting the carbon dioxide. Everything is in divine order. Its wisdom, its genius is perfect. It doesn't need to say, you know, what do you think about that? It doesn't need to consult with you about it. It already did, but we, in all of our magnificence, you know what, we need to drill for oil up in here and disrupt this whole process of everything that's working together. And then, well, I don't understand why all these tornadoes and tsunamis are happening, and I don't understand, you know. And so, understand that everything that happens is connected. And because everything that is connected, know that there is only one thing that's connecting it, and it is the presence of God, the substance of all things. That's today's topic, folks. So when you know that, you know, you have spiritual practices like meditation that help to produce stages of consciousness, you know. But also know that there's something more that helps us to be our greatness. You know, our spiritual practices really are designed to awaken us. But for us to come into a true cosmic consciousness, we also have to grow up. Breathe, wake up, and grow up. And so the growing up is the part where we're really tuned in to that "Use Me" song. Because this is the way that we just, you know, we don't keep our heads in a book and say, okay, I got it, I got the theory, I'm good, I can say it out loud, I can repeat it to somebody else. That's not what this is about. It's not simply knowing the truth, but it's acting on the truth that will set you free. You know, when you can allow yourself to be an instrument, anytime I do some writing, it's usually pretty fantastic. And I'm not saying that from an egocentric point of view, I'm saying that from the people whose lives I've touched around the world. And so what I'm saying to you is, unless you put that information that you get from your substance into action, unless and until you put that information that you got into a song like Ed did, unless you put that information into action as you go about creating your art as Candace does, or unless you take that information and know that as you work on a particular client, as Asha does in her energy work that she does, unless you take the information about the truth principles into your everyday life, you are simply awoke, but you're simply not out of the bed. And so you get an opportunity to just fall asleep like you forgot that you were awake. But the thing about that is once you awake, it gets to be pretty uncomfortable for you to try to go back to be small again, because it just doesn't work that way. Have you ever seen like a butterfly try to go back to being a caterpillar? It doesn't happen. That's not the natural progression of things. And so you have to understand that vital living is really key to us stepping into our greatness. And that every expression of life must be recognized, honored, nurtured, nourished, and established individually and collectively. You know, it wasn't like God was so bored. It's like, well, I got this one man, I guess I'll make this woman, I guess I'll make this kid. You know, it wasn't like God didn't have nothing to do, so he created us. It did everything on purpose. And so everything around us is on purpose, working for us. You think that person that ticked you off on the freeway was by accident? You think that child that refused to do what you said was by accident? You think that boss that was giving you the blues was just something that just had to happen to annoy you today? No. All of it is a part of this ground of all being that is building you into your magnificence. Every challenge that we have is like, you know, that man pushing that rock up to the mountain, and it wasn't about how high he got on the mountain, and it wasn't about how high he reached. It was about the building of his beingness in the process. And so you can know that abundant living is honoring all that is, first with your awareness. And the thing about just being awake lets you know that you're unique, that just like we were saying to these men who came in here for the first time today, you've never been duplicated. So you get to celebrate who you are. I don't care what those people are saying to you about what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, what people will like and what people don't like. You know, if I wanted to just have a church that was about somebody else doing something, then maybe I would have just been a staff minister, but there wasn't anybody doing anything that I wanted to do about oneness in a way that I knew was real. So for me, it was up to me. That doesn't mean that I might not change my mind and just want to, you know, kind of like take it easy and just kind of like, well, what y'all doing? Okay, I'll do that today. But for right now, I am knowing that oneness is part of my divine destiny, that it is part of my fabric of my being, and however I express it through any of the 6 ways that I've identified as my vision for my ministry, that pulpit is one. But in the way that I do it is the way that is absolutely celebrating the oneness that is. And so when we are able to know that our concept of ourselves don't have to fit somebody else's paradigm, because the key to a cosmocentric mindset is key to creating a world that works for everyone, because first you have to see God in yourself. Hello? I don't care what your history has been. I don't care what your people have been through. I went to a play last night in Victory Gardens. It was a magnificent piece of work about these people. It was a musical about the Holocaust, if you can get your head around that. But these people, the performances were magnificent, and the show closes today. But there was such a passion that these people had for life. Even in the midst of knowing that at any moment they could be sent east. And so in that abundant living, even in a concentration camp, these people were able to absolutely live life to the fullest. And you, who have no such boundaries, can do so too. You know, we're leaving this place today. We're leaving this space. And this space has been a backup place for us for a number of years. When we were at CTU, it was a backup place for us. When we were at the neighborhood club, it was a backup for us. So ever since around 2009, we've been in and out of this space. And so whatever energies have been in this space have been a part of the energy of this ministry that we're calling Oneness Spiritual Center right now. So what you need to understand is that, well, the appearance to some may be that we are without a home because we're going to be traveling to different places. First of all, in Bronzeville, which is coming closer to the vision I had of being a little closer to South Loop. But we're not simply a building, we're a community. And the reason that we're a community is because we're able to love each other just as we are. We're able to love each other without trying to think that somebody is broken. You know, if you're having concept that you're broke, and you know, you have those conversations, or you have those conversations that you're poor, or not rich enough, or whatever it is, that energy is contributing to the collective consciousness of our community. Just as what Malala did has had an effect on this part of the world. So just know that we want you to be able to commit to a world that works for everyone on an individual level. So that means you have to leave that caterpillar stuff alone. We're coming into a new birth now. That was the beginning of our month. We're coming into a new awareness of what life is, not based on what happened in the old times, what happened with the last minister where you wanted to stay at that community, what happened with the people that you were in community with before. We're talking about where you are right here, right now, in this eternal moment. And in this eternal moment, you have an opportunity to be more than you ever have been. You have an opportunity to fly beyond the horizons that you've ever seen before. And so the commitment and the connections are what are important here. Because we love each other, we do what we do, not simply to gain anything, but just being a service. Yeah, I'll say it. I got like $17,000 less than I thought I would be getting as a minister in this community this year. I'm not in this for the money. That don't mean that you shouldn't put anything in the basket. Hello. But it does mean that service is key to what we do together. It is not about this egocentric purpose or goal that we might have in mind. Well, I want to get to church. I want to find a man. Well, ain't no man there. Let me go somewhere else. You know, it ain't about, well, you know, I'd rather have a heterosexual minister. It ain't about whatever the packaging is of the people in the community as much as it is, what is it that we are connected to and committed to collectively together? You know, what is it that we are committed to be collectively and individually. And that is what makes oneness be an instrument for a world that works for everyone. This is how the law of circulation works. You know, you get pulled into these spaces and places where you can share your gifts. And so when you listen to the announcements that say, use your talents, and somebody like Imani responds, who's this wonderful raw food gourmet cook, you know, then that's like service. And see how abundant that feels to be able to feed your people. See how abundant that feels to be able for you to taste something that's not packaged or has been frozen with all kinds of different preservatives in it. See what it may feel like for you to be living abundantly in real ways. You know, I invite you to enroll in the vision. That's what I'm here to do. You know, I'm forever inviting you to enroll in the vision. Not for me, for us. And I'm not even limiting the us to humans. But when we want to find God, you know, in the bumblebee, you know, if we want to find God in the honey that's in our tea, if we want to be present to the substance that is underneath everything that is, then truly we will be able to know that we are each blessed of our Father, and we can inherit the kingdom that's available to us. So I'm going to invite you to look to your neighbor and say, I am a child of the universe.
I am a child of the universe.
I am richly endowed with the allness, the fullness of all good. I am richly endowed with the fullness of all good. I am richly endowed with the fullness of all good. And whatever part of you that doesn't get that, I might ask you to say it again. I'm a child of the universe.
I'm a child of the universe.
I am richly endowed with the fullness of the all good.
I am richly endowed with the fullness of all good.
So I don't care what it was that you did. I don't care what the crime was that you committed, whether it was jaywalking or whatever it might have been. Because you are a child of the universe, and you're filled with the fullness of the all good. What you do with it is up to you, but it ain't like you're lacking anything. So if anybody's trying to convince you that you're anything less, you better tell them that you're really grateful for them sharing that information and keep on stepping. Because what you need to know about you is not anything that anyone can tell you, not including me. But you call forth whatever it is that I have to say today. So just know that you are co-creating the world that works for you even now. But when we're talking about the vision for the community, we're talking about deepening our connections by way of our spiritual practice. That's the awakening part. But we're also talking about collective spiritual practice, anchoring the teachings, got the theory, know the grace of God is there, but stepping into our greatness is saying, oh, leaders like, yeah, I think I can work that. I can work that. You know, when you're stepping into your greatness, and it's not even simply about how you're looking, what clothes you're wearing, but it's about really knowing the infinite possibilities that are available. So when we step out of these doors today, we have infinite possibilities available to us. So when we step out of the door of our homes on any given day, we have infinite possibilities available to us. And if we're limited by what has been, then we're not co-creating a world that works for everyone. So the vision for you to enroll in is one of abundant living. The vision for you to enroll in is to turn away from the appearance of lack to the reality of affluence. You know, abundant living means being able to taste all of it, being able to smell all of it, being able to touch all of it. Say to your neighbor, I establish myself in the limitless substance of God. I establish myself in the limitless substance of God. And I have abundance. And I have abundance. See, that's what abundance is about, people. It's about establishing yourself in the limitless substance of God. So, I bless you with the awareness that you are one with your own personal flow of the universe, in which there is a legitimate royal abundance for every living creature. So I want you to know that as we are here together and we move out of a lack state of mind into an entitlement state of mind, that's not just reserved for certain people. Entitlement is for all of us. And let me tell you that that entitlement is the affirmation that you gave to your neighbor. I am a child of the universe, richly endowed with the fullness of all good. That is what you are entitled to. You are an expression of the infinite creative flow. You are entitled to constant support, just as the lilies of the field who toil not. You don't have to struggle to have your good. You are entitled. I don't care what the genetic history of your mother was, what she did for a living, whether she scrubbed floors or she was the first lady of the state of Illinois. I don't care what your pedigree was in the physical realm. Your true pedigree is of royal magnificence. This is the substance that you are made of. Know that God is in the midst of you, whether it's physically detectable or not. And it is that purpose, the power, and the peace that is leading you to see God in yourself and to see God in each other. And lastly, as I close, know that when you're being present with the knowing that your good is here right now, you're being anchored in joy. See, can you not feel joy when you think about your good being right here, right now? Now remember what our annual theme is. Journey into joy, living and loving in bliss. This is what God wants for you. Live abundantly. Namaste.
Namaste.